Good afternoon, everyone. I think we'll go ahead and get started if everyone's ready. We are missing one panelist right now, but perhaps he will float in as the afternoon progresses here. My name is Megan Saul. I work for the City of Wyoming, and I'm also a member of the GVMC Pie Committee. And I just want to thank you all for sticking around this afternoon. We certainly have some spirited individuals up front, so it's my sincere hope that you will stay very awake. That wasn't planned, I promise, but it was good. It was good, Josh, thank you. It is my sincere hope that you will stay awake and not take a little siesta in your chair, but if you do, that's okay. We'll call on you for a question later or something. As we all know, there's been a lot of talk lately about how to attract and retain young talent these days. I'm surprised we haven't come up with some acronym for it yet. I think it'd be like RIT or REIT or something, so if we want to work on that, go ahead. We've all been involved in these conversations, and I think we do know that they are important. The economy's changing, our society's changing, and it's very important for cities to keep up right now. So definitely, I think this is a very relevant topic. We all met earlier this week just to share some ideas and get to know one another, and we certainly have a lot of them. My challenge for my fellow panel members here, and all of us though, is we have a lot of dreams and we have a lot of ideas, but how can we make them practical and how can we put them into action? So today we want to do that a little bit. We're going to start by talking about the things that we love in West Michigan, why we're here, the things that we would maybe like to tweak a little bit that will keep us here, and then if we get us all to say how we can engage them specifically in local government and how we can get them involved in the community. So I want to introduce my illustrious panel here really quick. We have Josh Hagedorn, Maxine Gray, Selene Lacayo, and Andy Guy. And if they could, I would like them all to just briefly introduce themselves, tell us what community they live in now, and if they're not from West Michigan or have gone out and returned, how they got here.
Okay, I'm Josh Hagedorn, like she said. I live around like Diamond and Fulton area, so like just outside of downtown. And I work at Hope Network Behavioral Health Services as the Director of Quality and Training and Miscellaneous. Let's see. I live on like a dead-end street, and I have 4 kids, and so the place I spend my time is like my backyard and my neighborhood, very locally, as well as downtown. So that's me.
Good afternoon. My name is Maxine Gray, and I'm from Kalamazoo, Michigan originally. I attended Hope College in Holland, Michigan, and moved briefly to North Carolina, and then moved to Grand Rapids. I work at Williams Group, which is a strategic communications firm right downtown, and I think that's about it. I love to be involved in the community, so I technically live in Comstock Park, Michigan, but I'm all around Grand Rapids. I love being downtown. I love being around the community, going to events, volunteering, doing whatever I can. I'm single, so that gives me a lot of time and leeway to do that, so I definitely like being involved.
Are you rubbing it in?
Huh? Oh, not at all.
Well, I was going to say she enjoys long walks on the beach. And
favorite color is purple.
I'm kidding. Sorry, Maxine.
My name is Selene Lacayo. I'm originally from Mexico, and I was recruited by Grand Valley State University to come here and get, my education. After I completed my degree, I got married, and it made sense for my husband and I to stay here. I live in Caledonia. We just moved there. We love it, but we're city people, so yes, we like to relax in Caledonia after a long day of work, but we love going downtown. We are foodie people, so we love jumping from restaurant to restaurant, and that's pretty much it.
My name is Andy Guy, born in and hail from Traverse City, Michigan, but moved to Grand Rapids at an early age. Grew up around, actually, about 3 blocks behind this building. Went to Forest Hills Northern, went on to Michigan State. Lived out west after college for a little while, which seems to be a demographic trend, but also came back to the state to start a family and get a real job, which also seems to be a demographic trend. But I currently live in the Belknap neighborhood downtown, I work for a public relations firm. I got about a 20-minute walk to work and a 20-minute walk to any watering hole or restaurant in the central city, and do that frequently. And that's about me in a nutshell.
That's great. When we talked earlier, I think, Josh, after you graduated, you also moved away and then came back. Is that correct?
I forgot to mention that. I should have. Yeah, I came here. I wasn't born here either. I grew up in New Jersey, just outside of New York City, and I followed my girlfriend to Calvin College, and then I broke up with her, and I was too lazy to transfer. So I stayed here and graduated, and then got married, ran off to Guam, lived there, came back. So like I keep on coming back.
Right.
I mean, my friends and I sort of call this like a black hole. Like people sort of get sucked in here when they love it, and so I think it will be interesting to talk about the things that make this place unique, as I think we're going to.
Yeah, and that's one thing I wanted to highlight. We all discussed that, I sometimes sense fear in people that they're running around saying, oh my gosh, all of our graduates are leaving and no one is staying. And sometimes I think people forget about the pure idea of wanderlust. There's a lot of us who grow up around here, we go to school here, and we just need to try something new. And so we go out west, we go to Chicago, we go to the East Coast, we try it out for a couple years, have a great time, but then when it's time to find a grown-up job or when it's time to settle down, have families, we come back here. And so I don't want us all to forget that fact that while we may go out those first 5 years, we come back. So, let's not sell ourselves short in that area. So to capitalize on that, I just want to start, if we can talk about why we love Grand Rapids, the things we love to do here, what we love about our jobs, the places that we work, and, what is it about this black hole that, keeps us coming back for more? Anyone like to start us off?
Well, I guess I'd challenge the notion that we're a black hole.
I mean that in the nicest sense.
Yeah. I guess I kind of look at us more as a bright, shiny star with a lot of opportunity in it right now. And, like I said, I traveled out west for quite a bit. I was a roaming journalist for about 10 years, trying to understand a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here today. And I'm pretty confident that I could get a job in a lot of cities around at least this nation, and major metropolitan areas included. And frankly, there's an opportunity to get involved here very quickly at a young age. I also think that given the time we're at in Grand Rapids' young history as a growing city, that there's an immediate opportunity, if you do want to get involved, to play a very active role in building a city, which is kind of cool if you think about it. And you can't pick up and move to a Chicago or a San Francisco or a New York City and have that sort of immediate impact, I think, if you're just an average everyday guy. So
I am here in Grand Rapids because if I was to move to a bigger city where I would be more comfortable because I wouldn't be the minority or the person with the accent, here I am unique and I have different opportunities that are offered to me, like serving this board or get involved with this project, or could you interpret for the delegation that is coming from Zapopan to sign this sister city agreement. Those things wouldn't happen to me if I was in a big city. And being here gives me the opportunity to actually impact what is happening, like you just said. So I like that about Grand Rapids. I don't like the winter, but I do like Grand Rapids.
I would say definitely echo the opportunity to get involved with things where you can actually add value and see the impact of. I think there are so many community organizations that a lot of corporations and organizations are affiliated with and decide that they are going to stick to those organizations to add value, and that's very important. Not just in name, but to actually make a commitment to really see that through, whether that's a project or a campaign. And that's really important, and I think in the process, they talk about 6 degrees of separation. I say in Grand Rapids, there are probably about 2. I mean, really, when you go to different events and you get involved, it's a great way to really immerse yourself in this community, even if you are a newcomer. And that's very reassuring, and it's a positive thing that I've experienced.
Did I answer this one already?
Ish.
Ish.
We can go on to the next one if you'd like. That's fine.
That's cool.
Certainly there's aspects about the community and the people that are here, but I'd like to talk about places specifically. When your friends and family come to visit from out of town, what places do you take them to? What do you like to show them around West Michigan? And, you know, get specific.
I want to take that one on because my mom is coming to visit me next week, and I'm very excited, so I have everything already planned and scheduled because I got very Americanized, so now I plan and schedule things. So I definitely want to take her for a walk downtown. Rosa Park Circle, we'll probably walk all the way on Monroe Center, probably continue, hop in the car and go to East Grand Rapids, go to Reed's Lake, eat dinner at Rose's. I mean, very specific, Grand Rapids, this is history, these are the houses that were built, the Victorian time. I mean, my mom is gonna love that. And of course, she's coming with my aunt, and my aunt loves to try different wines and beers from different regions, so we have to go to Hopcat and we have to go to Founders as well. So those are the places in town that I'm gonna visit. But I'm also gonna go to Sagatech, which is enchanting, and Holland and Traverse City. I mean, there's things that Michigan has that are so unique and so pretty that you're gonna be happy sending all those pictures to everybody home. So, cool.
I think
Yeah.
after we
Yeah.
get done with this part, we're going to probably realize we all eat and drink a lot. So my family's hosting regimen has been kind of out of whack. We're hoping to get back on track in August when Little Mexico opens back up again, or September. I don't know. Maybe you can correct me, Suzanne. But certainly there's some good restaurants on the west side. Little Mexico when it reopens, Copper Top. Certainly trips out to the Lake Michigan shoreline are a must in any season when folks come to visit, friends and family. And, you know, Chicago is a pretty regular destination for us, too, usually by train, hopping on the train and going over there for a day or two, staying a night over. So something that I've recognized that my friends value when they come here is that ability to kind of base camp here and jump over to Chicago for not paying the rates of staying in Chicago all the time. So
we go to Meyer Gardens a lot because you can go there during any season. So I end up taking the kids there by ourselves, and then also when family members come out. Other than that, just downtown and just being able to walk up and down the sides of the river and you know, see the water, and then just like stop in at museums if we want to. Having all of that in a centralized place with a really beautiful river is helpful.
I think anything with an emphasis on local. I love Marika Treves and places that have so much character because they are local organizations. They're not franchises. Nothing against franchises, but the fact that I can go and see something different, see a different menu, find little shops in East Town where there's just so much character, and it connects you back to the city and what the city is really all about and what it means to those businesses. So that was a good way for me to get to know the city a little more by patronizing local.
That's good. And I think we have a lot of uniqueness in each of the metro areas. I sometimes worry, too, that we think that if we can't have a Chicago-like downtown in each of our cities, then there's no hope for us. You know, we're not going to be able to attract those people. But I do think we can myself. I do live in Wyoming. And for me, it's a 15-minute, I'm a little speedy, but it's a 15-minute drive out to Holland to get downtown. And it's 10 minutes to get downtown. M6 is a beautiful road, okay? It's a beautiful road. 20 minutes to get to Holland. But location is key here, and pretty much anywhere you are. You know, I live out in the suburbs a little bit more, but you can get to those destination points. You can get to your third places that might be in another community. But those are the kind of things that we need to play up. It's not just about living in one spot, but having access to all these other points. This next question I have for everyone is a bit of a tricky one. At the risk of causing them to no longer be secrets, what are your best kept secrets in Grand Rapids or in the metro area? What places do you love to go to that maybe not everyone knows about? And I'm sorry to ask you to reveal them now, but we have so many wonderful places around town. You know, I love to go up to Rockford. There's a little boutique downtown called Jade. Great handbags and dresses. Gentlemen, you'll have to go to the corner bar or something while you're there, which is probably a good alternative for you. But I love going there. You know, I've got my little spots in each neighborhood. Any that you'd care to share? No, they don't want to share them with you. They want them to be all their own.
I like the whole new trend that Cherry Street is having, all of the small shops, and they're family run or individually run, and they're all very hip and young. I love going to Caress. I love going to the Greenwell, and the flower shops that are around there. There's beautiful places that are so unique, and I'm with you. I don't like chain restaurants. I'd rather give my money to someone that is doing something so unique and authentic that you can eat art, like in America Trib.
Well, how do you guys feel about the way that cities and local governments are publicizing some of these good places they have? You know, we talked a little bit about communication. You know, for each of these communities that has their own special jewels, do you feel like they're doing a good job at getting that information out, or do you have any suggestions for what they could be doing?
Yeah, I know. I don't feel that there's anything communicated about what is going on. Well, yes, if you sign up for certain newsletters, then you can keep on the loop, and now we know that Electric Cheetah is open. I mean, that type of stuff. But the majority of my coworkers don't even have a clue that is going on. I don't think that there's anything on TV or any mass media or mass emails or even grassroots marketing campaigns of bringing flyers to the office. I mean, all of those maybe antiquated old techniques that are really inexpensive, they're needed. And, you know, when I'm serving my coffee, I always look at the board to see what's going on, and it would be helpful to have someone, I don't know if it's the government or the people that own the business, doing that.
Mm-hmm. Andy, you were one of the founding editors of Rapid Growth. Do you have any
Yeah, I guess my
for us?
first thought is the idea of local government or government in general promoting this stuff makes me really nervous. The first thing that comes to mind is the Cool Cities program, you know? I mean, with all due respect, I know a lot of people in here have worked hard on that, and a lot of the principles of the program are very sound and I think needed, but I mean, government sticking a sign at your border that says this is a cool city is the first thing that makes it not cool. And that's happened to several cities, at least in my mind. I mean, that's my opinion. I do think it's more the role of the media and, quite frankly, word of mouth. You know, all the places that we've mentioned up here have come through word of mouth that I've learned about. You know, I learned when Electric Cheetah opened because the person next to me said, hey, did you hear that it's opening tonight? Or I saw one of Andy's videos that, you know, it's coming in a week. So please, if you're in local government, don't launch a public relations campaign around a new restaurant. let the market handle that one.
Sure. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about why we're here now, and that's good, but obviously, what is it that will make us stay? Certainly, I think we're young, we're mobile. For those of us who don't have children yet, we have friends in Chicago and LA and New York, and it's not hard to pack our bags and get on a plane and go move out with them and look for a job, or, you know, couch surf for a while, or whatever we want to do. So I want to talk about the fact that, you know, we're not Chicago and Austin or Portland, but what is it about those places when we go and visit? What kind of aspects of those cities do you see that we could implement back here in West Michigan? You know, are there certain things that you think we can replicate and that we can, you know, try to steal a little bit of and make our own?
Yeah, I guess I want to start by not answering your question. I hope that's all right.
That's quite fine.
And just because I feel like a lot of times we have sort of like city envy, you know, like we like want to be some other city that we see out here. And I mean, if I wanted to be in one of those cities, I would be in one of those cities. Like I came here because, you know, on accident, but I stayed here on purpose. And the things that I really love about the city are like not really replicated other places. So I mean, like the first time I came here and I went to Meyer, and you know, like somebody said hello to me, like I almost like punched them. I was just like, "What are you doing? You're like a serial killer or something?" Because in New York, people don't do that. But I mean, seriously. But I mean, it's one of those things, like there's community, like people are in general just more welcoming, and then also, I mean, I think that these sort of like attempts to replicate what other cities have done are sort of doing things like top down, like looking at something far away and saying, oh, how can we replicate that here? Mm-hmm. Whereas really, like most of the most vibrant developments that I see occurring are ground up developments, are some stuff that communities themselves are doing and making decisions together and talking to each other. And that's the stuff that I think is really exciting, and that's really going to be lasting too, because it's going to be, I mean, it's driven all the way from the community itself and then up to government, if government's listening.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
that's not answering your question, though.
I guess I'd like to maybe put a little bit of a different frame on this question. I mean, I guess I come from maybe at it from a different angle. I mean, my thought is, and some of the data, which I'll mention here in a second, is that, you know, the talk about the brain drain, or you know, the idea that young people are filing out of this state, aren't exactly accurate, and I think in many ways they're counterproductive. The city of Grand Rapids saw a significant increase in 25 to 34-year-olds from 2006 to 2007, according to some census data. Grand Valley State University has tracked a lot of its graduates and retains an overwhelming majority of their graduates in the West Michigan area and the state of Michigan. So it's kind of hard to, I guess, this panic about keeping millennials or talent or the creative class or whatever you call it is getting a little bit of frustrating, and because those people are here and more are coming. I mean, if you look at Van Andel Institute, they're going to have to fill 400 incredibly talented people into that place when it opens. Michigan State University is going to be looking for another few hundred. And there are things that are going to be rippling off of that and other things that are happening, the UICA. So this group is here, it's strong, and it's getting stronger. And I think there are probably some things that we can do to accelerate that trend, but I don't think we need to be in panic mode about, you know, wrapping tourniquets around our arms to stop the bleeding because these people are running away, because the demographics just don't prove that out right now.
And I think, you know, to say that doesn't mean that we don't need to be concerned about it, but certainly to understand that we're here and that we're willing to work with government and work with the agencies in town to make better places and to make good things so that people will stay. But we're certainly here. Obviously, we're here, and we haven't left yet. So let's work together and try to make that happen.
I'll also add something. One of my best friends, when we graduated from Hope in '04, she moved to Boston, and she's working on her PhD in education right now. But one of the things that we talk about on a regular basis is that areas like Grand Rapids are not always seen as opportunity pockets. Young people look at places that are much larger in size because they feel like they can really break into that market without some of the, for lack of a better word, politics, you know, that they may see within a smaller place like a Grand Rapids. If you don't have a certain name, or if you don't fit a certain, if you don't have certain criteria that a lot of people that they see are successful here with, that can be a deterrent. And she said, you know, there are shorter lines. You know, I'll come back. She's from Holland, but she said, I'm going to come back in 10 years where I can be a principal somewhere. But the opportunities are not always seen in a place like this. So I think, one, it's to communicate that those opportunities are here, and two, if they're here, make sure that people feel as if they're here, and that when people enter the job market, a lot of people experience, me, myself, I've also experienced some adversity in terms of trying to find jobs when I was looking years ago, but I've also experienced great success. And I think that those are realities for people, and that areas like this are sometimes seen that, you know, I won't be able to break into that because I don't have that family name, or I don't fit into this box that I see most people in that area have or are that they're successful with. So.
And if I can speak for the international students that come here, we get recruited, we may have good scholarship opportunities, and we get a good education. Grand Valley was fantastic. But then the majority of my friends, my international student friends, could not find a job here, and it was because of the bias of, oh, you have an accent, you must not be able to do the job kind of thing. And I was lucky enough to find a job and be able to stay here, but that's the deterrent. And the fact that if you go to a bigger city, companies are used to, oh, yeah, you're from this country? Okay, this is the process to get your work visa. You start next month, don't worry. And here you come to a company and you tell them, well, I would need to get a work visa. Well, how do you do that? What is that? Oh no, you know what? The position is no longer available. We're gonna have someone local. So that's definitely something that pushes the international students that come here, because there's plenty of them, to go away.
Today we focused a lot about planning, and I think a lot of us, as we look at our communities, we're looking at brick and mortar projects right now. And so if any of you could be specific, we talk about mixed use projects and building up downtowns and having retail corridors. If we are to use some best practices from other cities, what kind of things do you envision here? What kind of developments, or extending an arts district, or what kind of things do you think that would help us get along here? Help international students feel more invited. Help our generation stay put.
I think that one of the biggest challenges when I came to Grand Valley, nobody told me that if you live in Allendale and you don't have a car, you are pretty much lost. And that's something that could have been solved. When I came here, there was no bus service that would come, that would go every 15 minutes. But the bus only takes you to downtown, and really, if I wanted to go to the mall, it would take me about an hour and 15 minutes just to get there, taking several buses. And I think that building up on the busing system would not only affect the international students positively, but all of the youth that comes here to study and don't have a car for the first semester, and all other people that don't want to use a car to go to work and prefer to use a massive transit.
Yeah, I'd just like to pile on that right there. If there's one common denominator, I think, of successful cities, not only in the United States of America, but around the globe, it's a serious mass transit system, or maybe a serious transportation system that has roads on one end of the spectrum and highways and streetcars and bike lanes and all the range of choices that we have to get around on the ground. And that's incredibly lacking here. And if the last vote we had on this issue is any indication, maybe going in the wrong direction. I think we need to get really serious about putting some modern infrastructure on the ground like that. And, it's funny, the answer to this question is almost incredibly boring. It's investment in infrastructure. It's just a different kind of infrastructure in some ways, or maybe infrastructure that we built 100 years ago and got away from building and now are realizing we need to get back to. But good sewers to keep the lakes and rivers clean, good parks so people have places to go relax and recreate after work with the family. What else? Education. Let's invest in our public schools. All these things that I think are priorities for us and many more of us, and I'm hanging on to this us by just a year or two. These are all the things that we are now disinvesting in at a very rapid rate on some things. Education, transportation, parks. The city budget here in Grand Rapids has just decimated the parks system the last 5 years. So invest in the Friends of Grand Rapids Parks organization, which I'm on the board of, and the executive director's right here if you want to make a contribution to reverse that trend.
That's good.
Yeah, while we're talking about parks, if I could just say one word in addition to that, which would be ceilings on parks. If we could find some way to have parks that could be open in the winter, that would be great. And we talked about this, and we're like, what are the major things that keep people from settling down in Michigan? It's like, well, there's 8 months of winter here. So, having places to go besides the mall, great.
There's a market opportunity for a young entrepreneur here in the room, right there. Indoor parks. Indoor parks, that'd be great. Well, when Paul Schutt was speaking this morning, I think he hit the nail on the head. He said he grew up in Michigan believing that people who lived in apartments or rode buses were poor people who couldn't afford otherwise, and certainly it was the same for me growing up. And I really think it's a severe shift of a mindset for most of us here in this room to think about really being open to mass transit and to higher density, more affordable housing options, in urban cores, in city centers. But I think that, the challenge for us, even if that's not the lifestyle we're accustomed to, if we want to live in the suburbs and outlying communities, that's fabulous. Have space in a backyard and cars in your driveway, that's fine. But be open as well to the other opportunities that might be out there for the people sitting here who are coming up and the people coming behind them who might be looking at some of these opportunities. So I know that it's hard to work ourselves out of that mindset, and I've often thought that if we were to make mass transit a go, we'd have to pay like 15,000 people, I don't know, 20,000 people a day to ride the bus so they would look full, so people would believe and understand that people are really using them. But, you know, I think that is a great opportunity that we have. So I'll certainly be looking forward to see us moving in that direction. One thing we've touched on a little bit is jobs. The other day when we were chatting, we said it's great to go to these cool cities, but at the end of the day, we need to work to make a living so that we can live in all these other places. And, you know, Andy, I think you touched on a little bit with some of the jobs that are around here, but, you know, you guys talk about, I think you're all pretty well networked, talk about the jobs you hear about and what opportunities there are here in Grand Rapids and how that's important that we have them. I mean, I guess I'll kick things off. I was having lunch with a friend the other day who has a new sort of startup concept, talking about how he's looking for a marketing manager to start off just part-time to begin with, but then looking for someone to really grow the company as it gets moving and rolling off the ground. And immediately, Maxine, I don't think she mentioned, but she is part founder of a young networking or young professionals group called Blend. And I've been to a couple of these events and met some people. And I was talking to this individual, we were having lunch, and immediately someone popped in my head. And I said, you need to talk to this person. And you need to tell this person what your dream is, and they're going to help you with that. And you can help bring that person a job. And so, you know, those opportunities are out there. And Maxine, if you want to talk a little bit more about Blend, but the networking opportunities and the jobs and resources that are available, you know, they're definitely here, but how do we impress that upon people?
Well, of course I'll talk about Blend. Blend is an organization that stands, it's an acronym for Business Leaders Linked to Encourage New Directions. We were founded in 2006, and it literally was founded by a couple of Grand Valley graduates who, a couple were from the east side of the state, some were from Grand Rapids, and they graduated. And they found themselves with jobs at Hayworth and different places, and they lived in Grand Rapids, but they really felt there was no way to really break into the community. And so on a social level, from a professional development standpoint, and from a community service standpoint. And so they founded this group. And we have grown tremendously since the beginning. We're still grassroots. We're not even a nonprofit yet. But we host monthly events geared towards retaining young professionals, specifically of color, but we're open to everyone, but in this community. And it has really served, I think we filled a niche. It was something that contributed to their retention in the city, and I'm still here. And it's very much, we found a way to connect with corporations. We found a way to connect with organizations where we can add value. And we've also connected these young professionals to know that every single month there will be an event. And even if you work at a corporation and you moved here from Texas, that there's a way for you to feel like you're a part of something, and then continue to extend your network and continue to build contacts for yourself. And I think in a community like Grand Rapids, everywhere, over 70% of jobs go unadvertised, right? It's networking. But in a community like Grand Rapids, it's even, you have to be networked even more so to hear about those things, because that position won't be posted. It'll be filled by someone who passes, when Megan passes something along, to someone who passes something along. And so that piece is really crucial to the city, and so we recognize that. And that's just something that we really try to do. And I think collaboration with other groups and just other people in the city is something that's supported. So it's something we try to do. We don't try to reinvent the wheel. We try to partner as well. So I don't know if that answered it or not.
No, that's great. And, you know, I think we all know that manufacturing is good here, and we have great manufacturers in the area, but unfortunately that sector is suffering right now. And, you know, we're not really sure when it's going to rebound. We have life sciences that are coming up at the same time, and there's going to be jobs there. But there have to be other areas. You know, Jason Wheeler was possibly going to join us today. I know that he's been in some conversations talking about mentorship. And something that I've sort of realized lately, you know, for all this talk about millennials, and everyone thinks, I don't know, they're going to save the world or something, which we kind of believe too. But at the same time, a lot of people think it's going to be right now. And to a certain degree, I feel like generations are looking at us and saying, okay, here's your time, go save, do, and be. But we're still young, and a lot of us are still a little green around the gills, and we need some help, and we need some leadership and mentorship. And so, you know, I think it's really great that people are giving us these opportunities, but we have so much institutional knowledge that's going to be leaving some of our corporations and local governments soon. At the City of Wyoming, we had an employee appreciation service the other day. We have people retiring with 42 years of service. they're saying these days that we will have 5 significant job changes before we retire. So, can any of you talk about mentorship opportunities, things that you've seen, or areas where you think that current employers can reach out and help us a little bit more?
I think I forgot to mention that I work for National Heritage Academies. But when I originally moved there, it was because my boss then promised me that she was going to mentor me. Because I left my previous job because I thought, well, yes, I learned how to do these skills, but now I'm ready for more, and nobody was giving me that more. So when I got hired into NHA, that's all what they did at the beginning. They mentor me, and I don't know if it's the way that we grew up and having internet so available to us that we have accessibility to knowledge all the time, but we need it. I need to constantly feel challenged and learning, because otherwise, I don't know, I feel like, okay, when is it time for me to make the next move? I need to be learning something.
Yeah, and I think even with technology and everything that's advanced today, me myself, I have a mom. My mom's 61. So I grew up in a household where things were very traditional in the sense that respect was there, that I learned to really respect my elders and respect that experience. And I see it as something positive. And within Blend, I serve as a professional development chair, so I connect with executives in the marketplace who can give us information on what we need to do to prepare, to really be successful in our careers. And one of those things is to really respect that experience and really, like a sponge. I just started a new job, and I'm a sponge. I'm literally soaking everything up, because that experience, those 42 years plus that people have, is priceless. And no technology, nothing that has happened today will replace that. It may, we may be able to do it faster, but that experience is still valuable. And from my perspective, I respect it. And I have lots of mentors, and I encourage other young people. I'm even kind of starting to mentor myself. A lot of young people will come to me and say, well, I want you to be my mentor. And I'm thinking, I'm 26. How can I mentor you? But clearly there's something in me that they see, and it's my responsibility to continue that cycle and give it right back. So I think it's very vital. And when you feel supported, as if, I made a mistake, but my mentor can tell me, whether it's inside my organization or not, that, Maxine, this is how you should look at it. Here's another way to look at it. Maybe don't do it this way next time. That makes me feel like I'm growing and I'm learning as a young professional, and that I can be successful. And I think that just increases the confidence, and it just helps us find the place where we fit. And I see myself on a good career path because of that, because of those relationships that I have.
Well, I want to switch topics here a little bit. Again, Paul mentioned this morning, he was a great springboard for this, talking about diversity. And I think we all know that we have a great amount of diversity here in the West Michigan region, and it's fabulous. And I love going places and seeing others who don't look like me. That probably sounds a little funny. I'm Korean but adopted, and I grew up here my whole life. So I often tell people I'm Dutch Korean, more Dutch than Korean most days, which is completely true. So for me, I've grown up assimilated to the culture, but seeing new faces and hearing different accents and new languages is something that really gets me excited, especially now that I've been able to travel a little bit. But while we have diversity here, I don't know that it's always something that we embrace completely. And Maxine, I'm sure, talking in reference to Blend, you can talk about that. But what do you guys see in West Michigan in terms of diversity? How does that need to change? And maybe some tips for local governments about, and other leaders here about how to work on that and how to get people engaged.
Well, I think diversity from all aspects, not just race or culture, but diversity of thought, everything, is important. To me, it's a lifestyle. It's not an event that you go to once a year and support. It's something that you really have to change your thought process, shift your paradigm to really immerse yourself in it. If I go to an event every single year and I don't feel uncomfortable at some point, or as if I'm going to learn something, then maybe I need to switch and do something else. And so for myself, I see the community as a way for me to do that every single day. I'm in a different situation. And I think that when people look at it from that standpoint, not trying to say, I did this or I talked to this person, it's a lifestyle. And I always challenge myself and my friends to make sure that diversity of thought, that I'm looking at different perspectives, that I'm not just staying within my box and saying that this is the way it's been done and this is the only way that I'll do it. I think it's just constantly challenging yourself, putting yourself in different situations, and not seeing it as something that, okay, I'm going to be culturally competent, you know, that my goal is to be culturally competent in 1 year. Like, to me, that's not a lifestyle, and that's not genuine. And another thing about millennials, you know, I've done a lot of research on it, we can smell when something is not genuine, you know, and we don't buy into things if they're not genuine. And so we can understand that, and we don't like it. And maybe a lot of people, it's not just millennials,
Right.
but I think that genuine just, I don't know, I think it enriches your life. And like Megan said, just doing different things, traveling. For myself, I have a lot of living to do, but I want to do a lot of different things. And I know that it will continue to challenge me and just make me a better person. So.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, diversity sort of impinges on a whole bunch of things that we've been talking about today. I mean, if you look at mentorship, like, I mean, diversity in age even, like, and that means us not being like, oh, we need new, like, being able to learn from other people's wisdom and other people's experience from wherever they happen to come from. It also connects to a lot of the sort of more practical things that we've been talking about, like, I mean, when I think about place and how place encourages diversity, I think of, you know, the public transportation system here as opposed to like in New York City where I grew up. And, you know, it's diversity. I mean, it's almost like put diversity in a little metal car and send it on its way, because that's what the subway is in New York City. So you end up just automatically being exposed to this stuff because everybody's using that form of transportation. The same with parks. You know, so those sort of infrastructures, they don't necessarily mean that you're going to have people who are, you know, open to the diversity of the people around them, but at least they have the opportunity to be immersed into it and to engage with it. I mean, whether they take that opportunity is always going to be their, you know, their choice and not the purview of government. But
Right. Well, and I think that's an important point, that we can be diverse and we can have many different people here, but do we integrate with them, and do we embrace them? And Josh, can you just share a little bit about your neighborhood and why you choose to?
oh, my neighborhood?
Yeah.
Yeah, we moved. I live on Lilac Court. You guys can come by for a barbecue sometime this summer. And we moved there because we were visiting the house, and on the porch next door there was a man who was sort of talking to himself and praying very loudly. Across the street there were, across the street it's like almost everybody is from Guatemala across the street, and on our side almost everybody is African American, and we really are like the minority on my block. So, and that's almost like a place I'd much rather be in, is like purposefully being in a place where, you know what, like I feel like I almost like have a purpose, that I like present a unique view on something. And people feel a lot more comfortable because it's not like they're moving into my neighborhood, I'm moving into their neighborhood, and I'm, you know, and I'm not saying, you know, not taking ownership of it completely. I'm just saying like, hey, I'm here, we're all in this together. But it's purposeful. I mean, it has to. I mean, I feel like to make changes like that, a lot of it is just individual choices. Like that's not, you can't really mandate that.
Right. Well, and I don't think so either, but, you know, just the idea that you're there and they're welcoming of you, because I think sometimes we get in our groups and we look at other groups and think, oh, they want to be their own group, they wouldn't want me to be a part of it, they want to be their own group. And, you know, I think we all kind of have the same attitudes toward each other, and that prevents us. There's a fear and that uncomfortableness there. So it's great to know that you were purposeful in moving there, but then they've embraced you and they've welcomed you in.
Yeah, and I think it's really important also that we think of different types of diversity, like socioeconomic diversity. I mean,
Right.
you know, you can have, I mean, a lot of times that's what drives the homogeneity of certain communities is economics, you know. And, I mean, that's just as important as any other kind of diversity, is having people who are engaged in different forms of work and, you know, they get paid different amounts of money.
Selene, if I can pick on you, I mean, coming here obviously as an international student and moving to Allendale and Grand Valley, you know, did you feel welcome? Do you feel welcome in the community now? And are there certain places you go to where you feel more welcome?
Megan is speaking on me because her and I hang out a lot, so she knows what I think. It was very hard to come here as an international student with an accent. I mean, I keep mentioning my accent because it makes me feel uncomfortable that people think that I don't understand something because I have an accent. So usually when you go to a store, and of course you come here to the States and your accent is 10 times thicker and you don't understand when they ask you, you want the receipt in the bag or with you because they say it so fast. You're like, what? And people tend to dumb you down and they start talking to you like this and with big, and you know, that happened a lot at the beginning. And then I guess I started hanging out with different people that were more accepting, but even now, I feel that my husband is also international, so we both have very thick accents and we look very different. And sometimes, you know, we are shopping in Caledonia and everybody's very homogeneous there, and just look at you and they kind of, you see them, you see that kid saying, "Oh, look, mom," and it almost is uncomfortable. So then I think, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do when I have kids and, you know, having all these stereotypes coming to them? But I do believe that education and being in a good school that teaches children from the young age about different people from different cultures and different backgrounds, and you know, as they were saying, it's not only about racial or I don't know, being from another country, but also the age and the socio-economical differences. I think that the education system was really seriously lacking that. Even my classmates in college, they didn't really engage with me. I had better relationships with my professors, really. And I think that is really a part that is missing. I mean, I see some schools are excellent and are doing that from kindergarten, but the majority of schools in the area are just very segregated and they don't really invest any money on diversity and teaching it and embracing it. I feel like families that do it, like yourself, they have to purposely make a plan to do it. It's not that it's available for them or that it happens without, you know, thinking about it.
If it makes you feel any better, the 3-year-old who lives across the street from me speaks very slowly to me in Spanish. Make sure that I understand.
That's really good. Andy, do you see diversity as something important in order for our region to be successful as we move forward? I mean, is this an issue that we need to talk about, or do you think it'll just kind of grow organically on its own, or?
Yes.
Yes. I phrased that question all wrong.
I think it's incredibly important. It's a must. I mean, I don't, it's a big issue. I don't know how we wrestle with it, you know. I'm identifying with a lot of things that are said here is that, you know, I just kind of, it's a lifestyle. You either kind of have it or you have something else, I think, or you're trying to get from one to the other, and it's just difficult. But it is something that we should prioritize, I think. I mean, I think it's essential to our future success and prosperity around here to be very welcoming of all sorts of diversity that has been outlined here.
Do you think that's something, for all of you, do you think that's something that local government in its capacity can affect?
I think so, especially with education. I think that learning diversity and respect should be part of a curriculum. I think that kids should learn it from kindergarten, and I do believe that if children learn, they would teach their parents, and you know, they would put the values of their parents in perspective when they say, well, what are you talking about? What is the difference between that Hispanic kid versus that African American versus me? I mean, we are all the same. We all go to the same classroom.
Mm-hmm. Great. The topics come up a lot, you know, that we like to be here because we feel like we can be a part of something, you know, at an early age, like we said. I mean, myself, I'm on the PI committee, and here I am talking in front of all you today. You know, we're able to get on the ground floor some really exciting, innovative things. And city government level, I can say from personal experience, we're always looking for your voices to sit on our boards and committees, to come to our public information meetings, to give your input, and sometimes we struggle to do that. What kind of issues and what kind of topics would attract you all to get involved with local government in some of the projects that we undertake?
Well, we just talked about it, diversity, embracing of diversity and how to teach people about it and how to be respectful. That would be something that would attract me to be part of a committee or.
With things like, master planning processes, design charrettes, reviewing ordinances, community development. Are those the kind of things you guys are going to get involved in? No.
Yes, no, I wouldn't.
Well,
say
if
that.
no, give explanations why. Because, sometimes we sit around, I'll be honest, and we bang our heads against the wall saying, how can we get people to come to the table? Why are only 3 showing up at my meeting? If that, how is it or what is it that we need to do in order to engage you? Or do we just need to go about this all differently?
I think the connection, one thing I've always struggled with was the connection between, let's say, policy and real life. And I think that a lot of young people struggle with that as well. Sometimes it's a us and them, so people see the government as that's them. They make the rules, and we just take part in them, and we have to abide by them. And so I think being able to communicate the connection and finding ways to do that so that the ownership piece is increased and you really see the real life impact. I don't know if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because the policies and the laws, they affect us all. I mean, and so it's not this council decided that this plan or this zoning or whatever, they affect everyone, and you will have to abide by them. And so I think making that connection between how it impacts you and why it's important to bring your voice to the table, why it's important to be a citizen, not just someone who lives there, but someone who's active and involved is something that, and I don't know the answer to that, but I know it's important. I know from my perspective, I know I need to get more involved. But it's a matter of making that connection of how does this really impact, and making the connection that it's not us and them, that this is, we elect people, we all own that process, and we all have to abide by the things that come out of the process. So I don't know how to connect it, but I know it's important.
Yeah, I think it's a two-way street, too. You just touched on that, Maxine, that, government has to provide the forum, whatever that is, but the person on the other end has to want to get involved and participate. So, there's equal responsibility there, I think, on both parts. I think, I know we're kind of burning out the word, but I think innovation is kind of key to this conversation, Getting people involved these days isn't as easy as starting a website or, creating a Facebook page and hoping people are going to come and traffic it and put their input in. One of the more successful, I think, demonstrations of good public engagement we've had here in the last couple of years is the Green Grand Rapids process. I mean, and think about, I don't know if you folks have followed it all, but I imagine many of you have, just looking around the room. It started off with a Trivial Pursuit-like game to get people talking about the issues. And I went down to Steve's place, and we sat around and talked issues around the table around this game, and people did it all over the city. And when that project wraps up here in September, it's going to be a very impressive collection of thoughts and ideas from the whole community. And that game was what kicked it all off. I mean, there was the usual sort of public meetings and things like that and after, but it started off in a very innovative, fresh, dynamic way that kind of went to where people are, I think in many ways. So, I don't know how that translates to a Department of Transportation meeting about a bridge reconstruction or, how to close down a road to change the sewers, but certainly need to look at some of this stuff about the way I think local government has gone about their business with some fresh eyes and thinking about, one, how you make it relevant to the person you're trying to engage, and two, what's the easiest way to engage them where they're at,
I'll add one more thing too. Eric Pratt is in the room, and he did a presentation for Blend back in 2007, I believe. It was a professional development event, and he came in and he talked to us under the theme of fostering entrepreneurship in the Central City. And I mean, he had this huge PowerPoint, and some of the stuff was over our head, but it piqued our interest. He talked about brownstones. He talked about the different ways that as individuals interested in entrepreneurship, how we could get involved, how we could learn more about zoning and learn more about things bringing it home, making it relevant to us. And that was a way that I know a lot of our individuals contacted him afterwards. And I'm not saying that that's the model, but I'm saying that now I'm connected with Eric. He shared some vital information. We all got the PowerPoint after the event, and that piqued our interest and said, this is not only a way and a means to become entrepreneurs, but also this is more about our government. We're learning a little more about the city of Grand Rapids as an organization. So that was something that we really appreciated, and I think an opportunity like that created, interest and an interest in us staying in touch and also learning more about the process that to us sometimes is just so big. No one really knows much about, the zoning process and things like that that are sort of, we see that as us and them. That's the language that you all use versus, I'm just an everyday person who may not understand everything that goes into that process.
So making it relevant and connecting it with pertinent issues. I mean, to say that we're going to change the weed ordinance so your grass can only be 12 inches high. If I just send out something about that, you're not going to care. But if I attach it to maybe the value of your home or something to that effect, would that cause you more to be a little more interested, potentially?
Yeah.
Or are you still not going to care? Everybody will just mow their lawns, right?
Just the front yard.
Just the front yard, sure. What if we let you have a goat in the backyard? Does that be fine? Losing up.
Are you gonna let me have a goat in the backyard?
No, you might need to talk to someone from
All
Grand
right.
Rapids about that. Sorry.
No, I mean, I think that, what everyone has said is right. I mean, if I'm going to be involved with something after I get home from work, it should be fun. Like, it should be relevant. It should be, I think this is something that business everywhere struggles with is like, serious does not equal boring. Like, hey, you can have a serious conversation and it could be fun at the same time. Fancy that. Right. I think that's, sort of maybe a guiding principle, and also that it needs to be relevant and it needs to be like action oriented. Like, I think all those things are the keys to like what would make me be involved in something.
You don't want to sit in 3 meetings and then post a notice and wait 20 days and then go to another public hearing and then wait for 2 ordinance readings?
Not so much.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I know there's not much we can do about that either, but those are just the ideas. A lot of our conversation today has talked about concepts, about the community, about people's attitudes and perceptions. And before we wrap this up, those are all really wonderful, beautiful things that we need to strive for. But I guess my question to you all is, as local government who have to make the policies and set the laws and enforce them, realistically, do you see a role for us in trying to make all these, conceptual and societal things happen? Are there things that we can do? Because that's what we're trying to figure out right now. As local government, what is our role in attracting and keeping young talent here? And are there tangible things that we can be doing, or do we just kind of need to let the entrepreneurs go and let the small business startups go and the grassroots efforts? Are they going to take it over, or is there a role for us to play? Because that's what we really want to know today. Sorry, I didn't really write that one down on the sheet for you guys to think about.
That's a big one, too.
I think that in terms of like tourism and promoting the city, for instance, if you go to the City of Grand Rapids website, the website, it doesn't really give you much information, and it's not really up to date. It does have information, and you can see some restaurants there and whatnot, but it doesn't give you every single thing, which I think that the government has all of the information of every single thing that opens. How long does it take for someone to type it in and put it available for people? Oftentimes I just want to go there and see, oh yeah, that's in a restaurant that I have not gone. I want to go there.
But do you ever access like GR Now or the downtown website to find out that information too?
Yes.
Because I know you hear this from us, but obviously our resources are limited to some extent, and we can't always serve as the Convention Bureau and the local government and that. So, do we just need to do a better job at connecting? I was say, do we need to do a better job with accessing other resources?
Yes, because, and again, just thinking about international students, when you're doing the research to come to a university in the U.S., you usually do it through a brochure and through internet. And basically, you go to the website of the city, and if they don't have those links, then you're going to miss out on a lot of information. But If you don't want to have the time or have someone that you're paying to update your website, then just link it to stuff that is already done.
Government clearly has a role to play. I mean, it's, especially at the local level, I think responsible for setting the community's priorities, protecting the public health, setting the stage for investment, economic development through tax structures and things like that. So it's an incredibly important role to play. I think we gotta, you know, the world has changed in the last couple of years here, and probably take a real close look at how government changes with it, you know. I don't know if government's gonna declare bankruptcy and get forced into reorganization and try and come out in 90 days with a new gov. That's probably not gonna happen, but we definitely need to rethink what 21st century government looks like. I mean, it seems to me like we're in 2009 and in many ways organized around agrarian society. And that's not a slam on agriculture. Agriculture is great, and we got a lot of good stuff, but there's probably more of an information age model of government that we should be striving for. You know, just speaking specifically to my government, city of Grand Rapids, I don't know what it's like in Wyoming, but we know a lot of the answers. A lot of them are written in our city's master plan. And a lot of the times it seems like we just don't have the political will to act on them, you know, whether it's a wider sidewalk or, you know, bike lanes or just even some of the simplest stuff. I learned the other day that the city of Grand Rapids has an incredibly goofy moped parking regulation that results in people getting tickets. So, I mean, we know a lot of the stuff we need to do. We just need to get the will to do a lot of it, and maybe that's more of us getting into those seats, but we're at a pretty critical time right now, I think, and looking for ways to accelerate that transition, I think, is very important right now. So
That's great. Well, and I think, you know, just fell from that, I would say, please be involved, you know, call us, and for all of you as well. You know, we want to hear from people. We sit in our offices and we wonder where the residents are, and, you know, we want to hear from them. We know that our practices may not always be the best or most up to date, but then please call us and give us suggestions, and, you know, tell us what it is what you're looking for, because we want you to be at the table. And as we move forward, obviously we know we can't do it on our own. And so this is the kind of input we need, and maybe we need to meet like this once a month for, I don't know, into eternity to keep talking about these ideas, but certainly they're out there, and so we appreciate that. That is all I have for my questions. I did want to leave some time today for question and answer, and so if you have any questions for any of the panelists or the whole panel, please feel free to share them. Right here.
Well, one of the things that I hear that you all have in common is the fact that you brought experiences from a lot of different places here. I know that I did that when I was younger. We went to the East Coast for 10 years, came back. Both of our kids, we sent them away, and they're starting to think about coming back. And when you go out and experience the world, and it's something that doesn't happen a lot here, is people that live here don't necessarily go out and experience the rest of the world. So they get very provincial in their thoughts, they get very small and tiny in their thinking, and it leads to the issues of diversity and people being afraid and not thinking big. How do we instill that or encourage that more in the young people here to go out and grow in many places and come back or stay? I mean, that's okay, but you know, how do we encourage that even more?
If I can take that one, I think it's in education. When I grew up in Mexico, even when I was, I don't know, in kindergarten, seriously, we started learning about the world, and we would have these fabulous classes about different food, and we would go to all kinds of different restaurants and museums, and that was kind of ingrained in all of us. The majority of my friends, while they studied in Mexico and have lived their whole life there, they learn about other cultures and traveling a lot as something desirable. Everybody wants to do that. And here it almost seems like, oh, why, you're traveling? Why do you want to do that? But it's because they have never learned anything different. And I know that at some grades, maybe 5th or 6th, they do that class where they have to research one country, but that's one time a year. and it really doesn't help them interact or get a mindset of, oh, let me learn about Morocco today. I mean, we do have that back home because it's in our education system. So I think that that's something that the government can do.
Yeah, and if I can add something, Selene and I actually worked at the Padnos International Center at Grand Valley State University together. And study abroad is a huge thing. I'm hard-pressed to find any of my friends that haven't done study abroad anymore. And I think, that's something else that we can really encourage. And for those of you who work for corporations or even municipalities, to sponsor stipends to sister cities or to locations where you might have a branch of your company, to get students to go out and to facilitate that process for them is a huge thing. 'Cause like I said, pretty much everyone I know has studied abroad, or they've backpacked through Europe, or they've done mission trips in different countries. And I think it's really becoming a bigger thing. But if we can just be more encouraging of that and send students out and tell them, yes, please go, don't stay put, get out of here for a little while, see something new, because there is so much knowledge and I think maturity and insight that comes back with those trips. At least we'd like to believe so once we get back, so that's good. Right here.
Or how do you bring that culture to your community where you're more inviting of bringing in students from other areas of the global universe to us so that those students are then in school with our students and you help create that accepting, welcoming environment at that level?
Mm-hmm. I think that probably goes back to schools as well, and whether you call your school board or your superintendent. But I believe there are consortiums out there. If you called them and said, we'd be interested in hosting international students, it could probably be done. My roommates, their sister is a junior at Granville, and last year they had 2 exchange students from Germany, 2 girls come and live with them for 2 months. And, they came and they had a great time, and they visited our culture, and they interacted with all the students, and they got to visit fun places and take little weekend trips and whatnot. But in a lot of cases, I think it's as simple as making a phone call, and I think there's definitely resources out there. And I think any of us, we've probably had experiences where we've gone to school with international students and may have resources. And, I would say just ask around, call your local universities that have study abroad programs, see if they can connect you with others. I know Rotary sometimes does international programs too, and so, I think it's great that, you're wanting them to come here too, and I think there's resources out there for you.
And also, well, you mentioned the Grand Rapids Sister Cities International. I think that they have the potential, because everybody has connections in the countries, to come up with a program. I mean, they want to do it. They just lack the funds to do it. And it could be so easy, and it would be something not only beneficial for the students that would come here to Grand Rapids, but also for Grand Rapids, because those students go back home, and what do they talk about? What they experienced in Grand Rapids, and Grand Rapids does have a lot to offer.
Yeah, and just to say too that it's happening. I mean, I'm trying to carry the mantra of the alternative narrative here. It's happening. I mean, I walk up Michigan Hill 3-4 times a week, and that place is a little hub of cultural diversity. Walk through Van Andel Institute sometime, and I know that's an extreme example, but that place is incredibly diverse. And those people have families, and they're living out in Cascade or Rockford or Lowell, and some of them downtown. It's happening, I mean, I think sometimes we have to remember that, relatively speaking, Grand Rapids is a young city. When you compare us, certainly to stuff in Europe or Asia, we're very young and growing. So we're kind of planting the seeds, I think, for a lot of that growth right now.
Yes.
I'd like to pose this question to the panelists as a whole. It seems like there's been a variety of questions and issues that have been raised and posed to the panel. Has there been, again, a similar type of variation in terms of responses that come back to those questions? But one thing that was a fair amount of consensus that came from the panel was the issue of mass transit. And I just wanted to ask the panel as a whole, how do we address those as a community, as a region? How do we address the deficiencies that exist in our current transit system and the perceptions that may correspond with some of the issues that were brought up in this morning's keynote?
We got to bring Steve Redmond up to the panel here real quick with MDOT to help us sort that one out.
Well, I guess if we'll use the BRT, for example, I think a lot of it comes down to advocacy. If these are things that we really want and that, we really believe in, then we need to talk to our friends, and maybe we need to put it on our Facebook or whatever to go out and vote, and they provide a perfect avenue for us to put in a very innovative mass transit system, but nobody went to the polls, or people weren't educated to go to the polls. And in Wyoming, I'll be honest, we were not good to the BRT vote. It went down overwhelmingly in Wyoming, but did people do a good enough job of talking about what the benefits would be? Sure, my house is probably 3 miles from Division, and would I take the BRT personally? Probably not, because I have a car, and it just wouldn't be on my way. But for the economic development that would have sprung up there, would I go visit some of those shops and stores along the way that would probably be developed? Yeah, of course I would. And are there people living in that area who might need to get to the medical mile, and could live there and hop on a bus and zip down there, drink their coffee and read the paper on the way and have a stress-free commute? Yes, there are. Did I tell enough people that? Probably not. And, I think, on a very grassroots level, that's one of the things. As far as stirring up new policy discussions or ideas, I don't know if
I'll take
else.
a shot at this. I mean, I think this is one good example of where government has a very important role to play. I mean, if we prioritized mass transit in this city or this state, how would we be investing in it right now? I mean, if you take a look at the way that this state spends funding, it's predominantly roads and highways and expansions and extensions and widenings. And the bar to do transit is so much higher than some of the more innovative stuff like streetcars or BRTs or, heaven forbid, a light rail line, that it makes it that much more difficult. A good example, the Michigan Department of Transportation, who has been very active in working with my neighborhood, and we've done some very good work together, is going to be widening the highway through downtown past our neighborhood, in between Belknap and Health Hill. They didn't go to the polls to ask a millage question to raise the funding to put the however $100 million it's going to cost in the reconstruction of that highway. Why did we have to go to the polls to raise how many operating dollars it is to go get $32 million in federal funding? So I think if we look at leveling the playing field there, and there's certainly some external action that has to happen to embolden the political will to make it happen. But there's a lot of little levers and gears and policy platforms inside all of these departments that can make changes and recognize that the world has changed and start to invest differently. That's, looking towards the future. It seems like sometimes we've got one foot in 1950 and another foot in 2050, and we can't quite figure out where we're going right now. We're just kind of stuck in this transition. One last point, and I don't mean to dominate it, but I have strong feelings on this. Chris Lineberger, who's I think he's a adjunct professor or something at U of M, and he does a lot of work with Brookings. Used to be a real estate developer, wrote a couple books, has a pretty good mantra about how the future is urban walkable communities. He made the point at Michigan State University in a speech a couple of weeks ago that not building mass transit today, for us here specifically in Michigan and to some extent the United States, is like not building the highway system in the 1950s. And if you start to think about it that way, and I completely agree with what he's saying, that's some food for thought about how we're investing our money right now and raising the dollars to make those investments.
And if I can add something, I think these kind of discussions too, I hear a lot of talk about systems thinking, and then we need to look at these issues holistically. It's not just about my choice of how I'm going to get to work, but it's my choice about how our dollars are going to be spent and how we're going to provide for others in the community who have other needs. And, in the wintertime, we all get sad, seasonal depression disorder, or whatever the acronym is. And it's terrible. We complain about 8 months of winter. But if I was sitting on a bus on my way to work in the wintertime and had someone maybe cheerful or interesting to talk to, like Josh sitting next to me, maybe I would be a little bit happier for 20 more minutes of my day. It seems like a small thing, but I think in our technology age, and this is my small soapbox, we're losing so much of that personal connection. And things like mass transit bring that back to us, higher density living, you know, urban centers. I think that brings us all back together, and I think that's a lot of what we've lost. We talk so much about community, and I hear a lot of people say that they're lonely in West Michigan, that they feel like they're all by themselves. Well, for me, if I hop in my car all by myself at the end of the day, go to my house where my neighbors are, probably 100 feet on each side of me, and shut myself inside of my house, well, of course I'm going to be lonely, you know? But if we're out there and we're constantly interacting with people, I think one of the reasons we can probably all agree why we love to go to cities is because there's so much energy. There's people walking by you. They're walking their dogs. They're riding their bikes. They're, you know, having a cup of coffee or a beer at the corner bar. You know, it's fun to be out and to be among that vitality and energy. And, you know, when we talk about things like mass transit and education, that's, I think, what we need to tie it back into is quality of life. And I think that's really what these discussions are all about. So that's my little piece for today. But are there any more questions before we wrap up? Okay, well, I just want to thank you all for coming again. I want to thank our panel here for their thoughts and for taking some time out. And Monday evening, too, we had a little pre-meeting at the Winchester 840 Wealthy, which is a fabulous spot. So thank you guys very much for coming. I'm sure if you have any additional questions, they probably have cards to share, pick our brains, but we just really want to thank you for listening this afternoon.
It was a